Hi, I'm Marianne Smith from Penn State Schuylkill. I'm one of our chemistry and biology faculty who is extremely interested in environmental science and getting students involved in the process. So welcome to EnvironMentors. This year, I'll be offering in-person and remote experiences, and there are several that we have going on with my lab. And some of these programs you can do from home. Others we do require you to be on campus. And some of the extensions also require you to be on campus. But that's part of the great opportunity, diversity that also comes with some of the work I do in the lab. So right now we're offering 3 opportunities here, and they include wild sourdough and antimicrobials. And we offer this experience both in the Schuylkill region, where you would be coming down to our campus at Penn State Schuylkill in Schuylkill Haven. And we also offer the majority of the program remotely so that you can be working on this from home and then essentially meet in with the group via Zoom. So that would allow anybody across the state of Pennsylvania to participate. And we really just go through some training with you ahead of time to make sure that you're okay going through those protocols. I'll explain a little more about that in a moment. We also have global learning and observations to benefit the environment, or the GLOBE program. And this also has opportunities to work at our beautiful Penn State Schuylkill campus on some of our larger projects and help us even with our Arboretum project. But also we're able to do it remotely and have students looking at their own environments and helping compare across the state. And then finally, we have soil microbes and antimicrobials, looking at how nature actually provides us lots of different types of medicines. But because of the nature of this experiment program, it has to be done in person at Penn State Schuylkill because we need to have you working in the laboratory. So just a little bit more about the programs. In this slide, I've included the standard description I use of the project. And the basic idea of it is that sourdough is an organism at the end of the day. It includes different bacteria and yeast molecules that are going to interact to give the different flavors that we find in sourdough. So we actually encourage students to grow these cultures at home and then nurture them for several weeks to get a profile that we track over time. And then we actually do the culturing. We prefer to do cultures at our laboratory because then we can compare 2 standards. But we can actually just look at the different types of microbes within your particular samples while you're off-site. So there are also things that we can track over time with how your particular organisms work against different flower types, how they work in different conditions, and seeing that maybe what your organism's profile looks like could be different than others. So it's actually really encouraging to have people from across the state participating in one set protocol and then directly comparing data with one another. So basically, you're going to start by growing sourdough. Sourdough in itself starts as flour and water, and then it's exposed to the air where natural yeast microbes and bacteria actually colonize it and then go through their fermentation process to create the sourdough that we're all used to. And many of you may have even learned more about bread making during the pandemic. But we're taking that to the next step to then learn about, well, what different microbes are found in your sourdough? And we can actually place them. This is actually from one of our students in a previous year who did this as one of her research projects. And we found some different types and then actually further cultured them in the lab to see how do they work against some standard pathogens relatives. So one of the big benefits to the program is that you're going to learn microbiology. You're going to learn how to treat samples with respect, how to make sure that you're cleaning properly so that you prevent contamination, and learn how to actually do further cultures and be able to keep a sample based on one type of bacteria or yeast over time. Because you're going to be in control of this, you're going to be able to determine how you grow your sourdough. We give you some basic equipment, some basic directions, and basically have you take it from there. Whether you put it in a warm spot in your bedroom, or if it's in the kitchen near the stove, those are all things that you can talk about with your families and use that as part of your design. And then finally, because we look at this over time, we can see how sourdough organisms can change based on the flour they're grown in and even the conditions. And this both occurs locally, so what might happen at your own home, and as I also mentioned, across the state, across the country, across the world, that there are so many different types of sourdoughs out there that each one has slight differences in flavor and profile, that many of these we see have connections to the organisms that culture them and even the people that interact with them. So our second project, the soil microbes and antimicrobials, kind of goes down a similar path, that we're going to be taking media, in this case soil compared to sourdough, and then culturing materials. Because we're working with soil samples, that does mean we should need to be in the lab. That's actually the major distinction between the two projects, and the reason that this one is currently still an on-site. We look at our soil and see if there's any potential antibiotic producers, and then characterize them against known pathogen relatives. So here you can see some students from one of our previous classes obtaining soil. They actually were working as part of their microbiology class to do samples on site. That was back in February. And then we have them actually go into the lab and work with the different microbes over time to see what they actually have achieved. Again, you'll still learn about microbiology, and we'll see how different soil types, locations can vary their microbial profile. We'll also see even how depth and even type of soil. Is it more clay-based soil? Is it really hard? Is it really fertile, like you might see near a plant bed? And the big goal of this is that it can help us find alternatives to our current family of antibiotics, so that so many of them, unfortunately, have been put to the test and used wrongly in wrong ways, that they no longer are as effective as they once were, what we also call antibiotic resistance. This is trying to help solve that problem by finding new families of antibiotics that could be looked at in the future as medication. Another benefit to the program is that we work with national organizations in order to crowdsource our data. And students who participate in the program, whether in their high school or undergraduate years, have the ability to also present at the National Symposium with the organizations. And our third, last but not least program is that global learning and observations to benefit the environment. So this is an international effort to perform environmental monitoring. It's actually been around since 1996 and was a program that I participated in when I was in high school. So I have a proud globe tradition, but also it's one of these things that can inspire you to become an environmental scientist and look at this data and be able to help bring it to the system, and also be involved with scientists from around the world. So all of our data gets uploaded to a international database, which has ability for us to track over time, but also for international scientists involved in the program to be able to compare climate data in different areas and see how climate change is actually affecting different areas. So Another cool aspect of the GLOBE program is it's sponsored by NASA, and we actually do use some of the different NASA satellites and their data for with performing our measurements. We also have the ability to see how our environment changes over time. On the side here, I do have a picture from GLOBE that includes different measurements that have been taken over the last few days, where there's been more information put in. We can actually follow these all the way back to 1996. And many of your local districts may also participate in the program. Across the state of Pennsylvania, over 800 schools participate in the program. So there's lots of data out there. And students can perform many of the measurements at home. There are several apps that help us, and there's all other parts of equipment that we can. Here we have actually a picture of students getting some wind data and temperatures when they were working with us in a previous year. Some of the samples of other data we have, and these are all undergraduate students who are in my classes, and they include like our weather data, tree data. We can actually measure heights and densities and species diversity of trees, ground cover, water sampling, and that both includes chemical and biological differences over time, and then even just diversity, that we are looking at the different species present. Benefits to the program, of course, working with organizations like NASA and NOAA, Department of State. Okay, that's already a great opportunity for students to list, but also just learning about the different ways of taking measurements in the environment. We are recording data for short-term research that students can have their own projects based on their areas and looking at how that can change over a season. But we also are recording and tracking data for long-term studies, and that our little piece of Pennsylvania can then be examined and compared globally to other areas, not just at our latitude or longitude regions, but looking at any country and their data over time. So that actually allows us to be part of that global network. And then finally, there are opportunities for students to present in a virtual GLOBE conference. It's held each year so that students this semester would start submitting posters for next year's symposia. And over time, also, you would be able to have enough information to submit in future years. And then these are available for public view. So, and they are also judged for different awards. So these are just a little sampling about the different programs we offer here through the Penn State Schuylkill chapter of the EnvironMentors. So hopefully you'll join us. If you have any questions or would like to learn more, please feel free to contact me. Again, my name is Mary Ann Smith. I'm a faculty member of Penn State Schuylkill. And for reference, my email address is mvs14@psu.edu. Always feel free to contact me at the email address. I look forward to working with you.